It's the Indie Review Show.
Yeah, it is.
And the after party. I feel like I want to introduce it a different way than I did, but I don't know that anybody cares anymore. We're all hung up on the format, and everybody's just like, whatever. Like, just watch the show or don't watch the show.
I love it. So let's just let people know. So this is the Indie Review Show. Corey Kerr and I are both professionals in the field, whatever that means. Just we get paid to do art, and we're really into comics and independent art, and we feel like there's books and films and like awesome things that just don't get the proper attention. Or sometimes maybe they get attention, but we still want to draw attention to really good stuff, independently made. And some of it maybe even larger publishers. And like there might even be people who wouldn't consider what we're going to review today an indie comic anymore, because Daniel Clowes is pretty well known now. A lot of movies made based on his stuff. But the whole point of the show is to like kind of highlight those works and then to dissect it and figure out like what it is that we like about the art and how we're going to apply some of the stuff, what we pull from it and use in our own work. And I'm pretty excited because today we're going to be going over probably my favorite thing by Daniel Clowes. It's not his most accomplished art, which is saying a lot because seeing it, it's really accomplished. But the thing that's crazy about Daniel Clowes is like, as a cartoonist, like everything he does is accomplished. But it's definitely my favorite, and I think it's mainly because it's just got this perfect level of like surrealism and like a weird kind of waiting for Godot kind of feeling when reading it. And I've never had that feeling like to the level that I have reading this book. And a lot of that has to do with pacing. And so most of what I'm going to focus on is actually story, which is interesting because with Clowes, I usually focus on art and stuff like that. But I guess before we get into that, maybe we should do some quick plugs. So Corey, like, what do you want to plug? Where do you want people to go? All that fun stuff.
Well, you can actually watch the music video that I've spent a significant portion of the year on now. So you put you up.
I was trying to put you up.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Okay,
all right. So if you go to coreykerr.com and if you go to animations or under work, you can click on animations. Then you can watch that video. It's called Be Mine, and it's the thumbnail is the black drummer is Darren Blussman is on the thumbnail there, and he's a cool dude. But watch that video and let me know in the comments what you think. And then I was hoping to finish this other thing today, but it's about 99% done, and I've got some client feedback before I release that. But I might be able to finish that tonight while we're talking. So those are the two things. But yeah, go check out that video. That's what I want everybody to see. I finally have something to share. I feel like most of the year I've been saying, well, it's not done yet. So yeah. How about you, Josh?
Well, first, that's huge, Corey. And I didn't actually know that it was live on your YouTube yet. So I'm going to have to give it a watch again because I did see a sneak peek before, but I'm pretty excited to see that. And it's also cool. Just, it's got to feel good when you're sitting on something. Right now, I'm sitting on a little secret thing that I can't mention, and it's eating away at me. So congrats on getting to past that point. Yeah. The one thing I can talk about is two stories. Book one, which is my graphic novel about faith and mental illness. It's handwritten, hand inked, and hand lettered, and definitely very heavily influenced by the guy we're going to be talking about today, especially when it comes to stylization and definitely lettering. And so, like, as we start going through the next book, you'll hopefully be able to see some of that influence. And yeah, so that's, sorry, I forgot to mention where people can get it. So Amazon.com, two stories, Joshua Kemble, book one, you can get it for about $5, which is a pretty good deal since I get the same royalties from it. But if that's not your speed to support Amazon, which I fully understand, go to your local comic book shop and ask them to order this from Ingram and carry it in their store. So, okay, let's get into the good stuff. I'm really excited about this book. I hope I do it a little bit of justice.
So, Josh, your stream is really pixelated.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's more pixelated than it normally is.
That's very strange because it looks like clear as day on my end. So I'm wondering what that is.
I wonder if the internet will catch up or something. Let's try it, and maybe we can talk for a couple minutes if it doesn't, and see if it gets any better.
Is that better?
No.
Huh. I wonder if I should reconnect maybe or something.
Yeah, maybe get out and get in, or try your camera settings and see if they're set to.
It's got to be the connection because, like I said, on my on my screen, like it's clear as day.
Yeah,
so,
I think. Yeah. Okay. Try popping out and popping in again.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I will talk to people about a stupid theory that I've got. So, I was just chatting with some of the people. Jim, who's in the chat, was in this private chat. But the No Way Out trailer just came out. The new Spider-Man trailer that's supposed to be like, the half step into Doctor Strange into Multiverse of Madness. And I noticed, because I'm a color guy, I noticed the colors, the magic colors are kind of interesting. So anyway, I have a theory on that, but that looks a lot better.
Yeah.
So I might I was just telling everybody that I have a theory I might discuss with you later on. But let's put you up here. Yeah, that's okay. I can totally see it now.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is definitely one I don't want to get all pixelated. All right, so this is Like a Velvet Glove Cast in Iron by Daniel Clowes. The neat thing about most of Clowes's work, especially his early work, is this is all hand lettered. The color separations were all done by hand. So I think there's a pretty cool artist edition that I still haven't been able to afford yet. But at some point, I might have to pick up from Fantagraphics where it shows like the ruby lith that was cut to make like this lettering. But all of this is done old hat, like traditionally. So it's all hand lettered. And that's one of the beauties of Clowes is like when you see a really good indie creator, my favorite indie creators are the type who they write, they pencil, they ink, they letter, they color, they do everything. And I think that Daniel Clowes is a really good example of that. He was originally syndicating this in his comic book that was in floppy form called 8 Ball that was out through Fantagraphics. And then, of course, a lot of these stories were collected. But this is just one of my favorite works and super influential on a lot of cartoonists and comic artists. Are we still getting a pretty clear picture?
It's better than it was. So it's not like hyper clear, but it's
no.
Yeah, that's worse. I'd go back.
I'm gonna have to just do that.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. We're gonna roll with it. All right. So needless to say, I mean, obviously, like, if you're interested at all in this book, you should pick it up. But yeah, so this is a pretty crazy book. And I will just say at the top, if you are, not if you're a young person, maybe I'd say like 17 or younger, this may not be the book for you. It's definitely not like an all ages book. This is definitely intended for adults, and it has a lot of strange stuff. It's got like psychosexual themes. It also has like, some pretty strange violence and some oddities. So if that's not your thing, I recommend tune it out. Obviously, maybe even skip to like watch the next IRS or something. But I will say I'm going to cover a lot of like there's a little bit of nudity in the comic. I've covered that up. And then definitely just on a thematic level, as you'll see, this is a wild ride. So obviously, definitely, if you're not into like material for adults that deals with some disturbing topics, do not go further. Okay, so that out of the way. This is like a David Lynchy type story. It's the way I feel is like if Samuel Beckett wrote a comic book, it would be like this. So I mean, this guy that we're seeing here will come into play. This is Mr. Jones right here, that little happy face. And that will come into play into a wild conspiracy theory that comes into play later in the plot. But I love that with Clowes, he always has like little tiny nuggets like thrown into even his like, indices or whatever these are called. Every detail is considered. So all right, so here we go. Like a velvet glove cast in iron. So we see this face of a character. I'm gonna skip past a few of the plot reveals, but we are definitely not going to be able to make it through this whole thing. This might take a little bit longer than usual too, Corey, just because it's one of my favorites.
Absolutely.
And also, I just feel like the art is always going to be really pretty stunning. But again, I want to just kind of focus on beat by beat storytelling here. So we're introduced to this character, Clay Loudermilk, and it's a strange name, but that's this character. We'll find out his name later. And it introduces us to him when he's in a seedy theater, the kind that used to exist before the internet. And he's sitting in this theater, and what's interesting is when we're introduced to the character, he seems to he basically talks about, my head is getting worse. I wonder what the second feature is. I've probably seen it. So we start getting this idea that he's having some kind of issue with like his perception of things, right? So he's at this theater. There's a very bad film on. And then this strange, slightly like snuff type film shows up on the screen as like the next feature. And it's like this weird art film, but it has like these snuff elements to it. And toward the end, he sees this woman who's revealed, and he's shocked, and then he has a memory of knowing that woman. So we realize that Clay has some kind of past relationship with this woman. And now here's a guy speaking to this woman, and as the plot goes on, you'll start finding out. I'm going to just kind of skip past some of the reveals just to, you don't know this until like maybe 20 pages later. But what's revealed is that this is his wife. His wife had left him and just kind of walked out the door, and he never saw her again. And then he goes to this theater and he sees this strange film, and there's his wife in it. And so at the end credits, it says directed by Dr. Wilde and starring, and it names these names that will become important because now that he's seen this, he wants to track down who made the film. But here's where it gets really weird, because this is not your typical narrative. I mean, even the beginning should give you a tip off on that, Most stories don't just begin in like a seedy movie theater showing a strange snuff film, right? But he's basically going to proceed to like ask the movie attendant, who's drawn in a very Clausian way. Clowes just draws these, all of his characters feel like the cast of like a strange freak show. And he just sort of exaggerates, like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's like he likes to highlight the ugliness of life and like just twist and not give a positive light on reality. but also it's part of this kind of surreal landscape, and you'll see this as we go through this. It gets more and more strange. So he asks the person working at this place, do you know anything about that last movie? And then this kind of creepy guy's like, hey, you got to visit the bathrooms, right? But this is like a seedy movie theater, so you can imagine what would typically happen in a bathroom there, right? So there's a long line of kind of creepy looking dudes, and your expectations, and this is what's great about the storytelling, is it just defies your expectations, because once he gets to the stall, there's like all these people who keep calling him Slugger, like as if they all just agreed to call him the same thing. They come out of the stall and go, hey, your turn, Slugger. And he goes in there, and there's like this guy who's, like this oracle who's sitting in the toilet of a seedy movie theater. And you also overhear him giving like prescriptions to people. Like there's one man where he's telling him how to get away with murder. There's another person who he's giving him like a diagnosis for like how to solve itching on his dry skin. Like it's like so now we're introduced to this weird shaman kind of hiding in the restroom, and he asks the shaman like, who made the film, and he tells him who made it. So now he calls his friend. So I hope you're getting how this just it touches on points of reality, but this whole thing will proceed to just become like a strange fever dream. I don't know how well the visuals are coming out either.
We've got Sketchboy saying it's a 56K modem video quality.
Oh no!
So, good thing is Clowes spots blacks really well, so those are coming through.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah,
that's the strangest thing. That's got to be connection.
Yeah, I think it's connection, because your computer would show it to you just fine, but then as it uploads to the stream, it's probably not great. Do you want to? Because I know this is a book that you really enjoyed. Do you want to like rain check this book for when you have a better connection, so that you don't blow it on bad video quality, or do you want to keep going? I'm fine either way, because we can kind of see it. It's just we can't see like the quality of the line work.
Yeah, I think we should just go through it because there's plenty of books.
Okay,
it's just one of those days. I'll have to look into what's going on with the connection. That's a shame. All right, so we're introduced to. So he gets he gets out of the theater. He calls his friend, who criticizes him because he says, like, he calls his friend to borrow his car so that he can drive to this location that's the movie studio to try to find his wife. And his friend kind of criticizes him because he's like, hey, look, dude, you only call me when you need a favor, like a car or something like that. And he's like, I've been having trouble with my eyes. And he's like, you haven't even asked me how I'm doing with that. And he's like, look, fine, you can borrow my car. So then he gets to his friend's house, and his friend answers the door, and his friend has like these weird fish like sticking out of empty eye sockets.
Oh, geez.
And he just kind of explains like, oh yeah, that's the doctor had me take out my eyes, and then I'm supposed to have them cleaned by these like rare carp, and then I leave them in for 48 hours, and then I'll get my eyes back. So
can you zoom in on that panel?
Yes. Let me see if
just hold the book closer to the camera or something.
Yeah, let's try. Why not? So Can you see that?
Not really.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Yeah, and this is an older book, so my binding's a little dead. How about that? Is that clear? No,
it gets more clear over time. Kind of like if it doesn't move, it kind of clears up. Oh, I can kind of see the fish now. Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's a very strange book and a very strange ride, and will become more and more strange as we go. So okay, so he gets to the car. There's this strange parking lot attendant looking. She's holding a bottle of booze, and he's like, hey, I don't think I have my ticket. Like, it's my friend's car. I don't know if he left it in the glove box. And instead of saying anything, she just blows all of her drink into his mouth. And he spits it out, and he's like, ah. And then she just kind of sticks her tongue out, and he just drives off. Like, that's disgusting, you know? So then I'm only going to go through a few sequences of this just to show how bizarre this gets. And then we'll probably cut it, because especially if the visual's bad. So now at this point, he's driving. He's thinking about this film, and he's listening to a kind of folk song that ends up kind of tying into the plot. And there's police behind him. So the police pull him over. We have these kind of weird cops. They're basically saying, hey, we're just, you didn't do anything wrong. Because he's like, what's the problem, officer? He's like, we're just looking for this man who's wanted for murder. Shows this photo. And he's like, and then he shows a photo saying, this is what he did to a young lady in Cedarville County. And he's like, oh, gosh. And right when he does that, they're like, hey, this guy's drunk. He smells like a distillery. Remember when he got the alcohol spit in his mouth? So then they take him in, and they start just calling him a scumbag. And I love this humor. I mean, this is just this weird, twisted Clowes humor. It says, did you hear that Owens got an 1108 after that PRT snafu last week? Another A16, and that peckerhead's going to section 21 himself into an early code 4. So they're like cops that are just talking this weird, cop code. So then the police are driving. They pick up this woman. They trade off on who's going to molest her. She's got 3 eyes, and this happens in his car. And then it drives off, and that's the end of like the first story there. So then we get into Harum Scarum, which is like this is where it goes from like this kind of David Lynchian thing to like him falling into a creepy cult. So now all of these strange locations that are like Jim Lujan would just love, like the Love Motel, Vacancy, like all of this just kind of strange outsider, truck stop kind of vibe to a lot of areas in his stories. Yeah. So the cops, have stopped at a motel. They've had him just sleeping in there. They're like, did you sleep well? He's just stuck handcuffed in the back of the car. And then they basically kind of lay out this scenario for him. They're like, hey, look, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go to jail for a really long time, right? And then a guy like you is not going to do well in jail, or you could just let us fight you, and win or lose, we'll let you go. And he's like, what do you think? 10 years in the Big Rock or free to go in less than an hour? And the guy's like, okay. So the cops give him this thing to bite in. They just beat the living tar out of him. And then they go, okay, let's mark him. And they pull out an X-Acto knife, and they carve the Mr. Wonderful on his ankle and then drive off. And again, like the weird Clowes surrealist humor and stuff, they say joining the police force was the best idea you ever had. And then the other cop says, I love you. So then he's knocked out, and he wakes up in this strange location. And actually, he's not waking up now. He's just dreaming. And in his dream, he pulls this like picture. He looks through a hole in the wall. There's like a creepy, weird couple wearing like these weird cult masks. Then he sees his wife. Like she takes off her mask. He sees that it's his wife. Then he's like, what do I do now? And again, just like a weird dream sequence, wakes up and ends up in this room with this like kind of creepy group of friendly people. There's all these people out here having a barbecue. There's this girl who's like talking to him as if he's really friendly. And I forget what her name is. It's like one of those cult names. Oh my goodness. Well, her name will come up. But anyhow, so they kind of feed him. They're all acting like kind of strange and culty. giving him lots of food, kind of making him feel welcome. She solicits herself to him, and so he takes her up on her offer, even though he's resting, he's recovering. And when he wakes up again, he sees this strange naked guy watching the same video on loop with like a remote controller, like just sitting in front of the TV. And that guy gives him a big hug and is like, welcome. And he's the cult leader that we end up meeting. And everybody keeps calling him God because his name's like Godfrey. And this just continues to get more and more strange. So they're digging this hole together. He starts kind of like, hanging out with the cult. Everything's actually seeming really tame and nice, like they're a bunch of hippies, until we find out from this dude who's on the campfire with them that it's like a Charles Manson kind of cult. So he's predicted Harum Scarum, which is going to be a bloody war between the sexes. And he's basically saying, like, aren't we lucky to be able to sacrifice our lives for the cause? And then he remembers that the police officers, the picture that he was shown, which was saying, like, hey, there's this guy who just murdered someone. It was the cult leader, but just with longer hair. So then, just to remind you of that, Clowes like switches to a panel where you're like, oh, it's that guy. Which unfortunately you guys can't see. So it continues. They all drink some punch, and Clay drinks it, and it's clearly drugged. So he starts hallucinating, and he wakes up after the hallucination, and they're in somebody's house. And the guy who was talking at the campfire is like, yep, this is the time we're going to sacrifice. This is great, And he's like, crap, I forgot. He's basically saying it's a beautiful thing we're going to do here, which is, it sounds like they're going to do like a murder-suicide. And this guy's like, I left my cigarettes in the van. And he goes, I'll go get them for you. So he's like, really? Thanks a lot. And once he gets to the car, he sees the keys are in the ignition, and he's like about to take off. And the girl from earlier is in the back seat, basically saying, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, the guy asked me to move the car so we're not obvious or whatever. And she's like, we're supposed to be obvious. And then she gets really mad, and she's like, wait here, I'm going to go talk to that stupid jerk. So she goes to the house, and he's like, okay, I got a clear window. I'm getting out of here. So he ends up driving to this kind of strange location. He has nowhere to stay. He's in like a stolen car at this point. And he's at Grimm's Diner. And this is one of my favorite spots. And then maybe we'll leave after this spot. But and he's about to order some food. And when he goes to order it, there's this strange person who looks like a potato. And he's saying, hey, I'll have 2 eggs over easy, rye, toast, coffee. And the person says, potatoes? And he's like, okay. And hash browns? Saggy spouse or slaw platter? And he's like, hash browns. And she's like, thank you. So he asks the people who are at this diner, like, is there anywhere I can stay? And they're just like, F you. And finally she says, hey, my mom has a place to rent. So you could come, stay the night at that place. And he ends up basically taking her up on it because he has nowhere to stay. So then we find out that, it just keeps continually going down a rabbit hole. So we find out that this character was conceived by her mother, who met a man who was in the ocean and never left the ocean. And it was the most beautiful man she had ever seen. And they made love in the ocean, and then he swam off like 50 miles away. You get the idea that he's like some kind of merman or something. And then she ended up having this child that looks like a kind of strange potato fish type creature. So then the mother kind of accosts him and sort of, sleeps with him. And then he wakes up again, and he's trying to kind of put this all together. we get the sense that this potato child is very angry at her mother because I think she's in love with him, and it just proceeds to continue to get stranger and stranger until we start unrolling the conspiracy of, yeah, I mean, basically it will just kind of continue, but there ends up being kind of a conspiracy about Mr. Jones. He ends up meeting a conspiracy theorist who collects these appearances of this little Mr. Jones figure that appear throughout history and are even like a mark that's one of Adolf Hitler's moles is actually a Mr. Jones if you zoom in on it. And it just proceeds to get stranger and stranger. I mean, it's like it is one of the most bizarre comics you'll ever read. But the thing I love about it is every time it kind of goes down the rabbit hole, it sort of advances you down it very subtly.
Yeah.
And it just gets stranger and stranger. And the character, by having him have like a slightly, he kind of suggests that he might have like a mild amnesia. We're kind of drawn into it with him. And I just think it's masterfully done. It also just has strange characters. Like there's a character who has a dog that doesn't have any orifices. And his owner basically just gives him injections of water to keep him alive. And when he shaves the dog, he finds a map to the location of like the guy who created who's it gets further and further down the rabbit hole, and it's just a wonderful piece of work.
Oh man,
and masterfully drawn. So this grainy video did it no justice, but I highly recommend it. If you, as I was talking about it, this started getting kind of a strange feeling, like just like a dark dream kind of feeling. That's the feeling you get from this book. It feels like amnesia reading it. It's very strange. But I love the strangeness of it. Yeah. So yeah, that's Like a Velvet Glove Cast in Iron in wonderful 1K video or whatever.
I know that was a bummer. I mean, from what I could tell, it looks pretty cool, but yeah, it's a bummer that the video quality wasn't good. But that sounds so interesting.
Yeah, it is fascinating. It has a big twist. It actually ties all the threads to it. We actually do start getting a little bit of hints as to who all the characters are. There's a little bit of a hint as to what Mr. Jones signifies. But again, the resolutions are all these hazy kind of like in the dream logic. They come to great conclusions, but it's still like a very strange, surreal kind of waiting for Godot-ish story. So yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's fascinating. Do you want to break now, or do you want to talk about what you would steal from it, or what inspired you about it?
Yeah, so let's go to let me get back. Okay. Is this grainy too?
Yeah. I think it's your internet.
Wow. It's got to be my internet.
Yeah.
You guys send a thank you letter to Spectrum, which is our terrible internet server.
It's almost like the U.S. is plagued by giant megla corporations that are conglomerate, or that are like not competing with each other intentionally. It's almost as if there's some sort of conspiracy behind the scenes that everybody just accepts.
Yeah,
because other countries don't have the same problems. Anyway,
I love it. Well, yeah. It is what it is. Yeah, the thing that I love about Clowes, there's so much I pick up from Clowes. One is everything in the book is hand lettered, and the guy is probably the best letterer in comics. And that's putting him like right next to like Chris Ware, who's an amazing letterer as well. Mm-hmm. It's remarkable the quality of his lettering and the way it flows and like the way he draws word balloons and stuff like that. So artistically, it's very inspiring. But what I find really interesting is, as absurd as the story gets, you follow it. Like there's not a point of confusion where I'm not sure what happened prior. As crazy as that rabbit hole goes, you're following the character the whole way through it. And I think it's got like an Alice in Wonderland quality to that with the storytelling. But it also takes an immense amount of smart sequential storytelling. And I love that. Like, I love that, and I draw a lot of inspiration from that. I think a good example is like even in that sequence where, you know, he drops like the hint of those two weird cops, the two buddy cops, that are speaking in code in almost a way where you almost forget it because the sequence gets so absurd that they had shown him a photo of a murderer. And the photo is like small enough, but like if you look at the art, it's like he gave just enough marks to the second that you see him remember the photo, you instantly know it was that sequence before. And then you turn the page and you know it's the same character, even though he's drawn him with a completely different haircut because he's drawn distinctive enough marks on the face. Yeah. I know that's weird to say, and like that's a small part, but it's like there are things like that that are so masterfully done, and he makes it look easy.
Well, and anybody who hasn't tried to do that, like hasn't tried to draw a comic, probably won't understand how difficult that is. But there are actually very few comic book illustrators where you can tell, people's faces apart. Like if somebody else draws Mary Jane, it's really hard to tell that she's Mary Jane unless you see like bright red hair. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason that like the lexicon of comic book superheroes was like, well, we're gonna have these drawn by a bunch of different people, so we're just gonna put a big logo on their chest. But like Sergio Topi, a few of those guys, like a few of the like master craftsmen are able to, you're able to look at somebody and say, oh, that's so-and-so, and that's this other character, but that's actually pretty rare. So it is really impressive to be able to like change somebody's haircut and still recognize that it's the same person. That's very hard to do in illustration, especially in black and white.
Yeah, and also even if you're doing an absurd story, and I think that especially people who are writing like action comics kind of forget this, but it's like if you're writing a story, no matter how fantastical, like if you follow the rules of storytelling where you leave open threads that you then tie, like you can go pretty wild with like how far down the rabbit hole you go with a story, and still maintain a sense of structure and continuity and story by having threads that then tie later on in the plot. And it's like he does that all throughout, like the absurd thing with like the little face that gets carved on his foot, like by the cops. Like there's little things like that, like almost like before Lost, he was doing like a lot of Lost type devices and like a strange almost slice of life type of story, but that just gets really absurd.
One of the things I really enjoy about this type of storytelling is and one of the things that I think gives people the kind of surreal, uneasy feeling is when it's really, really well written and people are behaving in a natural way, but unnatural things are happening. Like it's not like it's like if it's done poorly, you look at that and you go, that's not how they would react. Like it doesn't connect. But if it's done really well, you're like almost freaked out. Like, why are they not reacting to this? I mean, that guy has no eyes. He's got fish in his eyes. And his friend is just talking to him about it instead of like screaming and running from the room.
I absolutely love the nonchalant way his friend just kind of describes it. Cause he's like, oh, by the way, like what's with the fish in your eyes? Like, where are your eyes? And he's just like, oh yeah. Like, so the doctor wants me to keep these in. And like, I think you're right in the sense of the way it's treated as anything else where somebody maybe saw like you with a cast or something,
or a patch on your eye or something.
Yeah. But it's just so nonchalant.
The eye patch. Oh, I had my eyes dilated earlier. I went to the eye doctor. Yeah. It's like the same. You can almost like, and that's what's amazing about this is like, you can almost hear how an actor would deliver that line in a nonchalant way. That's really, really nuanced writing as well. to be able to pull that off. There's something about that I really love, and I feel like I'll give you a good example. I think a lot of writers are really scared of trusting the audience to get the joke, and so they like over explain stuff. And the best example I can think of that is the Cable Guy with Jim Carrey. Mm-hmm. They are in the medieval, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the restaurant that's like medieval themed, where you sit there and you watch the knights fight each other. I think it's called Medieval Times. Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey, can we get like silverware? And the waitress says, here at Medieval Times, we try to be as authentic as possible. They did not have silverware in Medieval Times, so we do not have silverware here at Medieval Times. Can I refill your Coke? And instead of letting that sit, which was really good and well delivered, they're like, I don't trust the audience to do this. And so the next line is somebody saying, you don't have silverware, but you have Diet Coke. And it's like, they didn't mean that line. Like, had they trusted the audience to get it, that would have landed really well and it would have been really funny. And I feel like from what I'm seeing here, Clowes is like, he just lets it sit. He's like, I'm just going to put this out here, and I'm going to trust that I have intelligent readers that are going to catch the nuance that I'm throwing down.
Oh, totally. I mean, like, to me, there's not a lot of writers who would think like, okay, your character's stuck at like a shady diner. They just escaped a death cult, right? And they're going to order food. And what I'm going to do is have a character that looks like a potato. And their first line is going to be potato.
Right.
But as a question, like, oh, that's what you want to order? Like, potato? That to me is like, but again, like, no one comments on it. Like,
right.
And what's funny is that character winds up being a really sympathetic character later on. And kind of becomes like really essential to the plot. All of the characters, all of the strange, absurd sideways curves, because there's another way a comic like this could go too, which would be just like a bunch of sideways curves, and where it's just like a path that has no payoff or no connection. Yeah. But that's the thing I love, is like the fact that it threads those little curves into like this strange story that actually resolves is it's mind-blowing. It's something I don't know a lot of comic artists who can pull it off, and I don't think a lot of people who know Clowes for stuff like Ghost World, which are more narrative and do go down some weird curves and stuff, but are more of a standard plot, even though they do have those strange Clowesian kind of things. I don't know if they're aware of like how far he can go with the absurdity and still retain a coherent story. And as a person who just likes those weird existential stories that kind of leave you feeling like, a little uncertain, a little unsure, I love this. And I agree with you on that idea of throwing in just enough things to kind of make it feel relatable to life. Like, it's like, okay, we've all had a moment where you're like pulling out of a parking garage and you didn't have a ticket, right?
Yeah.
So like, that's a pretty relatable moment. We've all had somebody be a little strange and weird on a street. We haven't necessarily had that parking lot attendant like spit alcohol in our mouth. And then again, I love that that's for a plot point, because then, the absurdity of that being what he gets pulled over by the cops for. It's just a lot of things like that I absolutely adore. But I did want to focus on story, because I just think his dialogue and a lot of the just kind of weird plots it's fun. So.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought up existentialism, because that, as soon as you said that, I'm like, that's what this reminds me of, is Kafka.
Yeah,
it's a very Kafkaesque thing, and that's a term that like people use incorrectly a lot. Yeah. Basically, it's like when absurd, bizarre things happen and people take it in stride. That's Kafkaesque. Like you wake up one morning and you are a giant cockroach in bed, and you're like, oh, I've got to get to work. Like, how am I going to get out of this room now that I have a carapace? I'm going to be late for work. Where's my briefcase? Like, that's Kafka. And that's what that felt like, is like, instead of being like, holy crap, what is going on? There's fish eating your eyes. He's like, so what's up with the fish? Sure. So that's what as you're describing everything, that's kind of what it felt like to me. And now that you said that, I was like, oh, that's where I've felt this before, is reading Metamorphosis.
Oh, so, just as a little hook for people too who aren't familiar with this predates REM's like 95 Monster album. And there is a sequence in this when the conspiracy theorist is like going through the talk about like Mr. Wonderful, the little happy face thing. It's he ends up like turning to him and saying like, "What's the frequency, Kenneth? What's the frequency, Kenneth?" Which is what the kind of weird guy who shot Dan Rather said. And that wasn't REM who made that art first. Like, it was actually Daniel Clowes, like in a weird comic called 8 Ball. So, Daniel Clowes on point, very, very crazy and interesting and fascinating. Even the cult stuff pays off, because later in the plot, I'm just going to say this and not give anything else away, but even that pays off, because later on he ends up walking through the city, and in the background, there's literally a violent resistance war going on between women and men. Like, so it's like the cult leader was right. And it's hilarious, because you see all this graffiti like throughout the city, like gradually growing more and more in background panels, subtly hinting that like that's actually occurring. I love it. But yeah, you're right. There's never a dead punchline. And yeah, it just gets stranger and stranger. And also the choice of locations. Sorry for rambling, but choice of locations are key too. And I've mentioned this before with Clowes, but he picks like these great settings that just in themselves are kind of ominous and sort of depressing, and I don't know. I adore it. So
yeah, like I've spent a lot of time on the road, and I don't know if everybody has done that or not, but like I traveled on freeways in the West a lot. And there is something like really bizarre. Like Neil Gaiman really hit it when he was doing like American Gods, where he's talking about like these kind of like side of the road attractions. There is just a creepy, bizarre vibe to like middle of nowhere gas stations and stuff like that. And so like some of those giant, settings
like, that truck malls. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Like if you like I've been on a motorcycle a lot, and it's a different way of traveling. And so when you roll into one of those like gas stations that caters towards truckers that are usually like 50 to 100 miles away from anything else in any direction, there's like just bizarre things, and you start to get a glimpse of this like this segment of society that you're not interacting with on a normal day-to-day basis. Like, for example, I don't know that most people know this, but this is always really weird to me. There are certain gas stations where you can pay to take a shower in the gas station.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just kind of this like, oh yeah, I guess there are people that just, they live in the cab of their truck, and so they would need a place to shower. And it's just like, that kind of just kind of like bizarre, otherworldly Twilight Zone, Outer Limits style of location is a really good kind of like tie-in, because a lot of us will get a little glimpse of that world, and that sticks in our head. And so when you say, this is happening at this kind of strange gas station, or this drive-through, or this parking attendant thing, or whatever, like you're like you have that little bit of recognition, and that little bit of like weirdness comes with that. You bring that experience that you've had in the past to it, where you've just thought, there's people that are showering in public, like on the other side of this wall full of candy bars.
What's funny is like, I'm glad you brought that up, because that shower thing was exactly what I was going to use to kind of describe, like, that's kind of what Clowes's storytelling, at least in this book, feel like. It feels very much like aesthetically like that, because it's got the strangeness of that shower and the sort of like moments of like, oh, there's this whole other world. Right. But then it also has like the vintage, like Americana vibe of like the architecture of it and stuff, which hasn't been updated in centuries, which is perfect for the style of Clowes too. Because he's really like obsessed with like vintage retro, like he was using, like letraset lettering and like like different stippling patterns and stuff, like in the old hat way, as opposed like even at a time where everybody was switching to digital. And it shows, just it exudes in everything he does. Even the Mr. Wonderful like happy face just feels familiar. It's interesting. But yeah, I'm fascinated with his work, and I don't know a lot of people who can pull that off.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. You might
it's
have made
definitely
me
a worthwhile read.
You might have made me change my pick for next week. I think I might do some Sergio Topi stuff.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with him?
No, and I should be.
Okay. Yeah. He's his stuff. Is it Alterna? Archaea. Archaea started collecting his stuff for the U.S. because he's most of his stuff is in Italian, but it's really, really good. But he's another one of those that he doesn't have the strangeness that Clowes has, but he has like the kind of odd illustration style, and his inks are incredible. And every single character looks like a very distinct person. Like anyway. So
I love that.
Yeah, but he's got this one, The Collector, which I'll probably do next week, where it's just this. It's kind of this handlebar mustache Western kind of Wild West guy that just goes around collecting bizarre, surreal, or magical objects that are imbued with power, and then he just collects them. He's like, yeah, there's this obelisk that's floating in the middle of this desert, in Africa, and so I'm just gonna go get it. It's mine now, and that's all of the stories, and it's just really interesting. Anyway.
Oh, I adore it. That sounds really cool. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention. It's funny. I was talking about the story and all of that, different points. The one thing that also I will highlight for anybody is like, regardless of what kind of cartooning you do, Clowes is worth having in your library just for inks, because there's literally like there may be 2 or 3 guys in comics who can ink to that level. That guy uses the full gamut of the brush, like from wet, dry brush, feathering, hatching, and I mean, even on this book, like I do wish it were in higher resolution when I was going through it, because even the panel borders, like you can kind of geek out on like the tapers that you see and start realizing like a lot of those were done. Some people I know like speculate that he might have actually ruled some of them with brush, but it's like, how do you rule a brush? Like he actually did the Marvel way. Like, I mean, the book said that nobody can actually do that I know, where it's like you tilt the ruler at an angle and then you get the ferrule like right against it and kind of shoop. No one I know can do that, but Clowes I think does that. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, like the control of brush is just insane. So
let's do this. Why don't you take a couple photos of some of the best examples, and we'll put them in the blog post on irsagency.com. Since the video didn't pick it up, we can just put that in the post. So for those of you watching live right now or are watching later, if you want to see some of the stuff that Josh is talking about, probably tomorrow, unless you're watching this tomorrow, go to irsagency.com and look at the most recent past episodes, and you'll see this one, and we'll have some images up so you can kind of see it, because it'd be a shame to miss those. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a fun.
Yeah, I'll say this. Josh recommended a book to me last time I talked. I think when did we talk last? Artcasters on Thursday, I think. Really? Okay. So I started reading the Bonhoeffer, like the pastor Nazi killer biography, and it is really interesting.
It's really good.
Yeah. And so I'm doing that on Audible, and I'm listening to it. At first, it kind of started out, I didn't realize, because I'm used to a different style of biography where it's more factual. Not that this doesn't have facts in it, but it goes into kind of like metaphysical and then doctrinal discussions of different types of Christianity, because this guy's a pastor. So it took me a minute to get used to like, oh, we're having like a deeper discussion about like, different different takes and sects of Christianity. And then it kind of gets into his life and everything. But anyway, really, really good book. And I'm a few hours into it. I'm really enjoying it. And I say that, and if this feels weird, but as a segue to, if you guys want a free audiobook, whether it be the Bonhoeffer autobiography, or not autobiography, but the biography, or any other book, you can go to irsagency.com, or you can go to audibletrial.com/IRS. And you get a free audiobook if you don't already have an Audible account. But man, I have really enjoyed Audible lately, and they've started doing this new thing where they can they give you just a bunch of free stuff. It's like there's a section of their website.
Yeah,
it's not free, but like it used to be that you would pay $15 a month and you would get an audiobook for a credit, right? No matter what the audiobook cost. So I'd always go for like, Team of Rivals, the Lincoln biography that's like 60 hours long or whatever. And
yeah,
it costs like,
or just one of the great courses where it's like, okay,
right,
this will last me for 5 weeks.
Right. It normally costs like $40 to $60 or something,
yeah,
but you get it for 15 because you get it, whatever. And that is still happening, but then they've also expanded it to now they're creating their own content, and so they'll go out and hire an author, and they'll say like, hey, why don't you like write a short story for us or something. And so you can like listen to like a 3-hour audiobook, but it's just part of your subscription. So you don't have to like pay for it, and it doesn't eat one of your credits.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you guys are interested in Audible, I have been an Audible fan for a very long time, and I just love it. And so
yeah, I mean, Corey, like what he was just describing too, he recommended a really good journalistic Audible one where it's like a podcast that just goes, it's like a deep dive into like the inner workings of like a cult, and it's fascinating and disturbing and like free and like this crazy, pretty solid investigative journalism and beautifully edited and stuff too.
And it's kind of a gonzo style of journalism, because instead of just being like, here are the things that I learned, it's like, here's what I was doing when I made this phone call.
Yeah.
And so you get like an insight into the journalist as well, which I found that really interesting.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, like Audible can't recommend it enough. We would recommend it if we weren't getting the IRS thing from it. But hey, audibletrial.com/IRS.
Yeah. Cool. That felt really weird. I actually would I agree. I would recommend that anyway.
I know.
I was like, I got to segue into the sponsor somehow.
It's a good segue though. And like the best things to promote are things you actually believe in. So.
Oh yeah. There's not enough money out there to get me to promote something that I don't like.
Word.
So, it's not. There probably is that amount of money, but I feel like I would be selling a piece of me at that point in time. So it would have to be like retiring for the rest of my life money.
Yeah. Retiring and then relocating and changing names so no one knows.
Right. So I'll say this. There's no amount of money that anyone would ever reasonably give me to where I would recommend something that I don't like.
I like
that. Frank is asking, is that an ad for cults? Fascinating, disturbing, free to join. So anyway, so we've got Gary and Frank and Jim in the chats. So hi to everybody who's watching us, and Sketchboy01. So let's take a quick break here, and then we'll come back with the after party. So if you are watching this while you're working, go stretch out, maybe get your foam roller out and roll out your back, and we will see you back here in about 2 minutes. I'll turn this thing on. Where's the 2-minute counter? There we go.
All right, I guess we're back. I think Corey is taking a break or something. So how's everybody doing in the chats? I want to see the animated trailer for Tarako Creative Cast. Where could I see that, Frank? I am kind of curious. I'd like to see your crack at animation, dude. All right. So, and then Jim said that Clowes draws everything or does everything amazing, but I think he said dows. Clowes dows everything amazing.
Sorry, I thought I could be fast enough, and I was wrong.
Frank was just saying Corey raptured.
Yep.
That's if you're a pre-trib guy. And then Jim said hello all. All right. So anyhow,
turn my mic off while I'm chewing.
So this is going to be one of the strange ones where I'm actually caught up. Like I'm at a pause point on my main project because I have a project that I have to wrap that I can't talk about, but I might have talked to Corey about behind the scenes, but I can't tell you guys about. So, but that I'm at a point where I'm waiting for feedback. So that's all caught up, which is crazy. So I'm at this weird point where it's like been like, I had one day this weekend where all I did was hang out with my kid and it was awesome. But I also keep feeling like there's something I'm pending that I'm supposed to do. And then I'm like, no, I'm actually
right.
It's a weird thing. Like when you're in the mode of production and art all the time and art making, it's a very strange thing to like almost have like a forced break, but it's kind of, I think, healthy. But it's the first time I think in like years where I haven't had something I actually need to be doing.
I call it the post-project letdown, where just like you hit that point and you've been like pushing so hard for so long that you're like, you almost don't know what to do with yourself. Because I
wish I were there though. This is a weird pause midpoint, but I do want to hear what you have to say. But it is, so it's kind of like a simulation of that.
Right. But it's still that, it's just like getting off of a boat that you've been on for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And the ground feels like it's moving and you just feel like,
yeah,
oh, I got used to this kind of bizarre way of living. And now I'm back to where normal people are. And it feels strange to be in like a normal situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a weird thing. And like, yeah, there is a little bit of the post-project thing too, because one of these is like a goal that is very close to getting done. That's kind of like a surprise and like a really good thing. And it's been fun to kind of see this thing taking shape and getting better. And that like, I'm also like Chris put it a good way. It's like getting off an escalator where you're just like, whoa, I'm still trying to find your footing. But
like one of those ones on the, like at airports where you get on it and you're walking at a normal speed, but then you're walking really fast.
Yeah. The flat ones.
Right as you step off of it, you either have to speed up or you just go, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, that Texas, what's that one in like Houston? That one's crazy. That's like the longest one I've ever been on of those like long ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I feel like I also think one of the nice things about constantly being in production mode, and maybe you can relate to this too, because you just wrapped a project, so or you're close.
I'm about to wrap 2.
Yeah.
So like last week I wrapped this one, and then the other one was shorter, but I had been working on it like behind the scenes, like just getting in, 30 minutes here or, an hour here.
Yeah.
And so like it just like fell really fast. I feel like I got it done in like 4 days. So anyway, it was weird.
It is weird. But I think there's one advantage to it, which is like, you really do appreciate like what a lot of people consider boredom, where you're just like, this is this is kind of nice. Like, because
Right.
I don't get that. I don't tend to get bored. And part of it's because like right now I'm aching to get back on this project that's like kind of pending,
Right.
where it's like, I know there's some stuff I need to do for it. It's waiting for certain feedback. And I just want to get it, get it moving because I'm excited about it.
I hate waiting for feedback. Like I would have been done with this car one that I was doing, but it was like a client. And so like, I like send them something at like 3 a.m. and then I'm like, well, I've still got about an hour or two before I'm going to go to bed, but I can't do anything now. So I guess I should try to sleep.
Yeah. I think it's what happens, like, because I think a lot of people struggle with the adverse where they'll procrastinate.
Right.
But it's like, I feel like there's an art to it where it's, because I used to have that issue too. I used to procrastinate a lot.
Right.
But I feel like the second you start getting addicted to finishing projects, it becomes the adverse where it's like, it's strange to press pause when you're kind of like used to closing.
Right.
It's hard to kind of sit open.
Yeah. It's interesting because neither of us were always like this. I don't think people are born like this. I think this is like a series of habits that you kind of just get into and then it becomes the norm.
Yeah.
But I don't know. People always ask my wife, like, how does Corey always get so much stuff done? And I don't feel like I get a lot of stuff done. But then I'm like, oh, like a lot of people I know have watched like 3 complete series of TV shows in the last like month and a half, or whatever, or they, they're rebuilding a car, or they're like doing stuff that I don't do.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, I guess, I don't know. Like to me, it's if I get home from work and hang out with the family and then put the kids to bed and then I watch, TV for 4 hours before I go to sleep or something, like that is weird. It's like a strange, it's a very unnerving place for me to be.
Yeah.
I get the impression that a lot of people are comfortable with that.
Yeah, I do too. And I think there's like a mix to it. Like, for instance, one of the things I like about doing the indie review show is like rereading like A Velvet Glove, Cast in Iron was super fun. And I wasn't making time for that. Like for exploring and revisiting books that I enjoy or discovering new ones. I used to even joke when people would be like, have you read any good comics lately? I'd be like, no, I'm making comics. Like when am I going to read them? Like,
yeah.
And I think it's really important for when you're doing a craft to, of course, be absorbing things outside of it. Cause I'd say like most comic artists I know, save a few, are digesting too many comics and need to read some books and like listen to some podcasts and and not podcasts about comics, like things that are totally about something else, because they'll give you material that's not pulling from like stuff that's already been made as comics. But it is important, like when you're doing a craft, to also remain in touch with the thing you love about the craft.
Right.
Because like, for instance, reading this made me really want to work on my comics. So it's hard to pause after reading something that's really inspiring, because it's like, oh, that's what I want to do. Or like I see little tricks that are sequentially being used and I'm like, I want to like use that.
Right.
And I can't right now yet. And so I think that's a good, healthy place to be. But you're right. Like it is weird to think about, I'd almost call them like I don't know. There's got to be a term for people who aren't practicing, practicing art.
That isn't offensive, or just in general.
Maybe they're civilians or
hobbyists.
Hobbyists. I don't know. Like, but my point is like
civilians.
It is weird to think about, like when you're in the trenches. It is weird to think about civilians. I guess that would be a good way to put it. So,
yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I don't know. So anyway, Oh, Frank says, I just had a similar conversation with Anna after we finished the Fraught Creative Cast, taking a break from creating and consuming something. Yeah. And Chris says, oh, where'd Chris go? There we go. I've been taking it easy on paternity leave. I've watched a lot of TV. I got to figure out how to get back on the escalator. Man, I tell you what, having a baby is one of the most disruptive things I can think of. It's so weird. They just, I don't know. Like Ozzy has gotten to the point where she's like sleeping through the night and stuff and doesn't need to be held every second of every day. But I mean, it's like 4 months later that she's finally gotten to the point where you can like put her down and she'll play with some toys. That was just exhausting. But anyway.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the longest break I've taken from comic making and stuff was when Ben was young, you know, because it's like you hit this point with kids, like, where you basically are completely relying on like the base evolution.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, food, shelter, provision, like providing comfort, like that's it. And then, you know, it was really interesting when Ben, I think it was interesting when Ben got to a point where I was like, I think I can draw. And then I remember feeling really guilty for the first week of drawing, because it was like, should I even be drawing? You know, it's a fascinating thing, man. That was a head trip. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine going back there. But good luck to you. Godspeed to you.
I tell you, I have gone back several times now because I've got 3 kids, but like the spacing was weird. Like a lot of people who have multiple kids, they're like, we're going to have, you know, a kid every 2 years or whatever. You know, we had a kid and then we had a kid 8 years. No, we adopted like 8 years later or something. And then 3 years after that. And so like, I've gotten out of diapers several times, you know, it's like, and then it just keeps, you have to relearn it. You're like, oh, I forgot how ridiculously time consuming and emotionally exhausting this is.
Yeah, dude.
But anyway.
Jim in the chat said, I'm at the end of Pleasure Beast, last marathon mile.
Cool.
Still the best title for an animation. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am trying to come up with the album art for this song and that like banner. So I'm trying to put together.
Oh, nice. They're having you do album art too, huh?
Well, just as kind of like the thumbnail image for. She's hired somebody to kind of promote it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so there'll be some of that to kind of. Oh, that's the same thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I've got to draw some. Oh, I can show you guys. Let's see if I can. Oh, I bet I can upload this. This is something that might be interesting. I'll show you what. Let me upload this really quick. I'll show you guys this thing that I just finished. We'll do it without narration. No, we'll do the with. We'll do the with narration. No, we'll do without. We'll do without narration when we upload this. It's only 20 seconds long. But here's the one that I'll be finishing tonight. Once it uploads, I'll play it here. It's going to take forever. I hate that there's no like loading bar to tell you like the progress of the upload. It's just like, okay, here it is. All right, so this is as close as I come to swearing. You ready for this?
That's awesome. Is that going to be, so are they doing internet ads or are they going to do TV ads?
Yeah, so they're going to do a number of different things. They're going to, like if it's 15 seconds or less, you can run it on a YouTube pre-roll and it's unskippable, which is kind of annoying.
Okay.
But there's that, and then you can play things on local theaters. I don't see a kayak or a bear. There was a kayak. There was no bear though.
It's
There
true.
was no bear. But yeah, so you can play things like our theaters have started to open up here because people got vaccinated and stuff, and so we're not having kind of the same surge that they're having in heavily populated areas. And so you can play things as like trailers before the trailers.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And then Hulu has opened up local advertising.
Ooh.
And so we're looking into kind of some targeted local advertising spaces, and then also the artwork that I've created for the animation will be used for T-shirts and billboards.
Yeah.
As well as possibly they might commission me to do a mural on the side of their building.
Sweet.
And so yeah, so it's going to go to a lot of different places, and we've built it in a way where it can kind of like splinter and be repurposed. Like each one of those things, even if it was only up for like 5 frames, is like a full like 4,000K resolution thing. So
sweet. That's smart.
Yeah,
dude, that's very exciting and cool. I think
Yeah. So it'll be fun. So I've got to add some. He's like, the hayride was supposed to be a hayride, not like hauling hay. So I got to add some kids on the hayride. And then he wants the logo on the truck, so that the logo's up the whole time. So I'll be adding those, and then I'll be done with that, and that'll be good.
Dude,
and
that's cake, man. I mean, compared to like, it's fascinating to see you at an endpoint like with that subtle of a revision or addition, because it's like, just considering like, but wow, man. I'm curious, what are you gonna do when you're wrapped?
Oh, jeez.
Go kayaking with a bear, or what was our we had another thing with the chair.
I don't remember. Somebody should. I'm sure people in the chats will remember, but I can't.
Leisure Beast.
Oh, Leisure Beast.
I just remembered it. So we need to make some products, man.
Dude, I will tell you this. There are certain things that you know how a lot of creatives kind of get a little bit obsessive about stuff or addicted to things.
Yeah.
I've noticed some things that I'm like perpetually on the hunt for. And one of those things is I want the perfect lawn chair. Like I am looking for like the perfect lawn chair. Like I've spent my entire life like sitting on the like $9, like grocery store specials that you get on like the outside of the grocery store for like $12 or whatever.
Yeah.
And recently I was like, you know what? I've made a bunch of extra money on this stuff. I deserve a good lawn chair. And now I'm obsessed with finding like the perfect lawn chair. So that would be my leisure thing, because I already have, like when I need to think, I have a hammock stand out in my front yard, and like there's no real light pollution where I am because there's like nobody that lives here, and so I'll just go lay down in the hammock and like look at the stars while I'm like trying to work out like story beats and stuff. But like during the day when my kids are like riding bikes in the cul-de-sac and stuff like that, I'm sitting in these crappy like $9 to $12 lawn chairs. So my Leisure Beast move is going to be like, I'm going to get like a $50 lawn chair that just like, it's got like drink holders and it's all comfortable. And like, there's this one I'm looking at where it's got like lumbar adjustment and a little like neck roll pad and stuff.
Nice. So. Just be careful. Cause I mean, those things will just eat you up from what I hear. I still want to do, maybe, oh man, I don't know. I'm guessing I'm going to be able to get moving on this project fairly soon, but if not, if like tomorrow I still have a window, like a clear window, maybe I'll do a quick Leisure Beast t-shirt design.
Yeah,
with just the legs sticking out of the couch. That's just like, if not, we might just have to like crowdsource that and see if somebody wants to draw our kayaking bear or Leisure Beast.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
I love the idea of a good lawn chair though, man. Especially, I mean, you definitely need the drink holders and all the all the accoutrements.
We won this like smoker, one of those kind of expensive like smokers. We won it in a raffle. And then I had this old grill that's like just, it's rusted. It's been sitting in the rain forever. And so I went out to my local ranching store. I don't know if you have ranching stores where you are, but like I've never lived in a place that had like ranching stores until now, because there's a lot of farmers and ranchers around here. So it's like a farm supply store. Dude, It is fascinating. Just the different products that they have. Anyway, so I went to this store because I'm thinking like, of all the stores I can think of, these guys would know how to grill meat, And so like I went there and I got this really nice like 3-burner grill that's like modular. And so like you can buy different attachments to it, and it'll have like a stone pizza oven that you can put on top. It has like anyway, so I've got my smoker and my grill on my deck, and I want like a really nice, I basically am building like a kingdom on my deck where I just want to sit and rule over this 9x9 deck. And I'll just cook hamburgers and sit there and drink lemonade for the next week.
So basically you're not looking for a lawn chair, you're looking for a throne.
Yes, I am looking for a grilling throne. That's my plan.
You need to get like the Game of Thrones throne and just call it a day.
That throne is specifically designed to be uncomfortable, so that no, I want a good like, yeah. So anyway, so that's what. But I'll tell you what I'm probably going to do. Frank is asking if they sell propane and propane accessories. They not only do they sell it, they have an entire 2 aisles of this giant warehouse store of propane and propane accessories, and it's like the best thing ever.
That makes sense though, because like it's also like there's a lot of camping in that area, I'd imagine. Right. That makes a lot of sense.
You know what's funny? Okay, I'll tell you, this is such a weird story. I always feel weird telling stories about stuff that I've bought because I always feel like, I don't know, it's bragging or something. But like I busted my butt to make all this extra money this year on this client work. Mm-hmm. Buying this grill at this farm supply store was unlike buying anything else anywhere else. No fewer than 4 different employees like got excited for me as I was like wheeling this grill to the thing, and all the accessories that I got with it and everything, like some cast iron stuff. I've got a grill cast iron sandwich maker where you just like smash it and you can make like really good like grilled cheese sandwiches and stuff. Anyway, they gathered and they were like, dude, this is awesome. I'm so excited for you. Like they were like really pumped about this. Like
Corey, what you don't realize is like every customer who goes in there, like somebody buys just like logs. They're like, oh man, these are the best guys. You got to see this. These are the best logs. I'm so excited for you. That's the bit.
Dude, I don't even care if it wasn't genuine. It worked so well. I was like pumped about this grill.
No, that is great. And you know what? That makes sense though. Like, I think we've all had moments like that, like even with art, where it's like when you have a client who's like willing to kind of go the extra mile and get the special treatment with the art, they're going to end up with a cool thing.
Yeah.
So you get pumped about it,
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Tick has a funny bit about the world's most comfortable chair. And once you sit down, things get cosmic and you can't ever get back up.
Oh, I love that. The Tick, I still haven't seen the live action.
It's hard. It's a hard slog.
Yeah, because I love the animation and I love the comics. Those were like some of the best. Was that New England comics? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's classic indie comics, which is great.
Right.
The Tick should be something to bring here maybe at some point.
Yeah, I've never read. I mean, I read one comic that I got on Free Comic Book Day, and I feel like some people don't use Free Comic Book Day the way that they should, because I was like a fan of the cartoon. I like indie comics. I like weird humor. And I read this Free Comic Book Day Tick story, and it was like them going to the beach and getting sunburnt. And I was like, this is dumb, and I have no interest in reading any other Tick stories. And I was like, give me the best thing on Free Comic Book Day so that I want to buy all the other books. That's what I feel like you should do.
I will say it is such a smart move for a publisher to do Free Comic Book Day. And I wish there were more publishers that would take that gamble.
Yeah.
Because it's, I mean, that is the best day to reach out to not just comic book readers, but outside of it.
Oh, there's tons of people that show up. I got one. It was a hardback. Let me see if I can hold on 1 second. I'm going to see if I can find this one. But I was like,
was really it for Mouse Guard?
Yeah, it was, but it also had some Labyrinth in it.
Nice.
Yeah. One second. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, because I remember a Free Comic Book Day giveaway a while ago that was Mouse Guard, and it was brilliant because I read Mouse Guard, but even getting that comic made me want to go get more Mouse Guard because I was like, oh yeah, this is a great comic. So I feel like that's a good marketing move. It's a good loss leader, basically.
Okay, so this is, let me go full screen here.
Is this a Gorillas thing, Corey? Don't show it.
Yeah, we'll get banned again. I was gonna go because I was telling you guys right before we went live, I was going frame by frame on the Spider-Man trailer and screenshotting it, but I feel like everybody does that and does all the breakdowns. But I have a theory, and I've got screenshots to back up my theory, but
I love I will say this is the most excited I've been. Like, first off, like, I grew up a Spider-Man fan. What's funny is I'm not excited about the trailer because of Spider-Man. I'm excited because of the strange scenes.
Yeah.
But I perused a few of what you had to say, and I think I might be in agreement with you because I think he's acting awfully strange for strange.
Right. He's
so I think he might
weird.
Yeah, you might be on the right point.
This has Will-o'-the-Wisp, Farscape, Labyrinth, Rust, and Mouse Guard. It's from Archaea.
Yep.
And they've got all of those stories, and it was in a hardbound book.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really nice book.
Yep.
And this some of the stories were dumb, but like the Labyrinth one and the Mouse Guard one, they're pretty good.
Yeah, and I was saying, like, Mouse Guard tends to do, like, Archaea has done that with Mouse Guard a few times, I think, on Free Comic Book Day. Every time they do, I end up buying more Mouse Guard because I love Mouse Guard.
Right.
And I'll forget about it because there's so much good stuff out there. And then whenever I get one of those, I'm like, okay, well, I have to go pick up. That's a great, I mean, that's a good
I'm sure this cost them tons to do. But at the same time, they've got to be making bank on the back end because if you put good stuff out there, I mean, that's how loss leaders work. So,
yeah. I think that's brilliant, man. One day, Corey.
One day, I don't even know how much that would cost. I'd be super interested to like find out like how many thousands of dollars do you have to do to like show up well at Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, you think about it, it's like
what are there, like 8,000 comic book shops in the US?
Yeah, 7 or 8, from what I gather. And then how many comics do you need to ship to each store?
Yeah, because the stores buy the comics.
Yeah,
so they don't give them to the stores for free. The stores
purchase
them. I believe there's some minimal cost.
Yeah, but it's got to be like. Yeah, we got to look into this.
Oh,
let's look into it, Corey.
Yeah, it's significantly lowered because I wouldn't mind getting Tongue-Cut Sparrow out there.
Oh, that's a smart idea, man. Or just do, like what you do is you do like a little preview of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just get with you and a few other people and put previews together of all the books.
I like it.
Let's
look into it.
I've got to get
It might be possible. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that people write off as like, well, but we're not whatever,
Oh yeah.
And they end up being feasible. So it might be worth looking into.
I just want to see if somebody's answered this question. It costs to have a book in the See if anybody else has done this. Oh, apparently it only costs $60 to be a free comic book day shop. But I don't know how much it costs for you to get into it. Yeah, let's look into that.
Yeah, we should. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so my theory is this, and you guys watching tell me if this is nuts or not, but Doctor Strange is not acting like Doctor Strange. I'm talking about the No Way Home Spider-Man thing. Okay, I got to back this up with Spider-Verse did the unthinkable and was able to pull off like an interdimensional multiple hero team story. And like, that's usually like the death of like comic book movies is when you have too many characters or you get into stuff that like really only translates well when you're reading it. Like,
you Spider-Man 3 it.
Yeah. Or Batman and Robin Forever it, or whatever. But like anytime you're going to take like a non-initiated comic book reader, right? So just like a civilian, as we say, and try to get them like when they did the Dark Phoenix story, I was like, there is no possible way that they're going to do that story the way it was done in the comics. Because in the comics, there's this like cosmic phoenix force that's part of one of the like ancient elder gods of the cosmos that travels around and occasionally inhabits different things to like alter the time stream. And I'm like, there's no way that like, ooh, Wolverine's got claws. Let's spend 20 minutes explaining how that works in a movie that you're also going to be able to get into like cosmic stuff.
Which is, by the way, why they should do X-Men as a TV show. And it's always a mistake. It's always going to be a mistake to make that movie, in my opinion.
No,
like they've gotten close and they've made some decent ones, but the point being, it's never going to be like if you're translating that to screen, it really should be a TV series because at its heart, let's all be honest, at least the Claremont version of X-Men, which I think most of us love, it's like the strength of that is it's a soap opera.
Yeah, it's straight soap opera.
Yeah, and a soap opera needs to be a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at like the layout of the X Mansion.
Yes,
and you notice that like Jean Grey's room is in between Scott and Wolverine, and that there's doors that go on either side of it that don't meet in the hallway.
Exactly,
that's canon
drama.
And so like there's just like stuff like that and all you get in the movies is like, well, we got to do this in 90 minutes, and so let's have him like say one line about it and then grunt when he sees Scott. And then we'll move on with that. And it's like, no, that's like hours of good content there that anyway. So yeah, totally needs to be a TV. It needs to be like a Netflix, style where they did it well. Cause I don't want every time I say, oh, that should be a TV show. I'm worried that they're going to have the CW do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But to be fair, like, I do feel good about the Disney series that they've launched. Like I've been enjoying their Marvel series.
The What If?
No. Oh, well, have they launched that yet?
Yeah, there's like 2 episodes out.
What? Okay, I haven't seen those yet.
Dude, what if T'Challa was Star-Lord? Is so good.
Okay, I'm gonna have to watch this. Okay, I didn't realize this had launched. So yeah,
I will just say.
See, that's what I should have been doing today.
I know.
When I don't have stuff to do.
Okay, without giving anything away, my favorite Thanos of any Thanos that has ever existed.
Okay. I love it.
So good.
Okay.
So rad.
Well,
okay.
I like the series. I like where it's heading. And the thing I love, like my favorite part of...
Wait, which Marvel one are you talking about?
So WandaVision and Winter Soldier, which I was really shocked by because I tend to not like that character Winter Soldier, but I thought that like where it went was great. Particularly because they had just some wonderful villains and like it got really my goodness, Loki, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah,
Like
Loki was good.
I loved it. It's like I think I like when they start getting kind of Brazil with it, which is interesting because Gary was saying like it's an unpopular position, but maybe we're rapidly approaching the terminal tiresome levels of multiverse. And I agree, except the only spots I really like multiverse storylines are with a character like Strange. Because I'm like, like the great thing about Doctor Strange is that is his character. His character is multiverses. I mean, it's like,
Right.
So I think
But have you read?
I get excited when I see like the Spider-Man trailer and they're bringing Strange in, and when it's like the multiverse of madness. I think
have you
this
read
might be good.
Have you read the Spider-Verse or the Spider-Geddon?
No.
Okay. If you want to, you can get a free Comixology trial.
Okay.
And all of both of those series, which are quite expansive. They were like one of those big like summer event things.
Yeah.
So it goes all over the place. Both of those are available. The villains are so dumb, but the story is so good. And I like the one thing I'll tell you about it that I really, really enjoy, that I think Spider-Man also works really well. That's why I'm really excited, because Strange works really well in multiverse, but Spider-Man also works really well in multiverse.
Yeah, and I feel like that current, I mean, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was like an incredible film, and I think handled that better than I've ever seen that done. So
right.
I also, this is nerdy, but like the best Sam Raimi take on Spider-Man was the Dr. Ock one, like the Spider-Man 2. I think at the time that Spider-Man 2 came out, I personally think that was the best. Like that was the pinnacle of superhero films at the time. And that character, that actor who plays Doc Ock, was like the best part of that whole franchise.
Have you seen Have you seen the trailer yet?
Yes, and so good. that to me made me really excited, because he was like, I couldn't see them using any other Doc Ock, and that made me really excited. There's a lot of things about that make me really excited. But what's funny is when I dropped off of Spider-Man, because that was my series for a long time, I actually followed the least popular Spider-Man. I was really into Web of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I did totally follow Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah.
So what's crazy is I haven't seen how they tie that in, but I do know somehow they pulled 2099's the blue costume into the multiverse, and that makes me really excited too, just as like a nerd, because I'm like, that's a pretty good throwback.
Okay, so check this out. So in the comic, it's like Into the Spider-Verse the movie, except instead of staying in one dimension, they hop dimensions, and they gather a team of all of the different spiders from all of the different dimensions. And so you have like you have Noor, there's one dimension where like Uncle Ben became Spider-Man and Peter, his nephew, died. There's a British version, there's the punk rock version, there's several female Spider-Man like Penny Parker, who has, instead of having like a little bot that she controls in the movie, she's got like a full-on like mecha sized, kaiju sized like spider warrior. All of that stuff. And then there are differences in the dimensions. Like there's a dimension that Spider-Ben. There's a Spider-Ben. That's where Spider-Gwen was invented. That's where Spider-Gwen came from, was this story. And she was so popular, they were going to do a Spider-Ham spinoff, but then they were like, we're kind of doing Howard the Duck already, and they're basically the same character, it's like just a funny talking animal with pretty much the same humor. So, but then the idea of Spider-Gwen and the design that they did was so popular on the internet that they spun that off into its own series, and they kind of crapped the bed on it because they've like restarted it and several times already, and anyway, renumbered stuff and whatever. But the thing that there's two things that I love about it. One is that they explain the spider sense. Like my spider sense is tingling, And it's the best explanation. So you have Madam Web, right, or the Weaver, who is basically like the fates in Greek lore that, you know, controls the fate of everything. So there is in every dimension there is a spider totem, and the spider totem is the Spider-Man character. It's somebody who is tied to the webs of fate. And the reason that they get spider sense precognition is because when the webs of fate vibrate, just like a spider web vibrating, there's a little bit of warning right before something happens. And so the reason that they have a spider sense is the precognition, because they're tied in as the spider totem to the webs of fate controlled by Madam Web. And it's like the best explanation. Like I'm one of those guys who's like, I don't want to know how Superman flies. I don't want to have the discussion. He's a man who flies. Like, it's a stupid, but this one was like, I'm so glad that they explained it, because it was such a good payoff for
That's
just like
kind of fun.
Decades of being a Spider-Man fan. And then it was like, so just like, that makes so much sense. So anyway.
Yeah. I think that's also kind of a fun way to be able to, like, you could have spectacular, amazing, like all of the different branches of Spider-Man can suddenly exist. I think that's pretty amazing. I really need to, again, one of the reasons I love the Indie Review Show is like, I completely tuned out of, like a lot of people actually, like, you know, the 90s speculation boom.
Right.
By the time that was over, I was done with like mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
And I missed the resurgence of Image. So I missed like a bunch of those like pinnacle, like key Image books that are just beautiful. And like, I missed a lot of the rebirth of superhero comics.
Oh, dude, remind me.
And a lot of this, like this really great run, like these great runs that I keep hearing about, like even doing store signings. It's like, I don't recognize how good things have gotten until I'm there, and then I'm seeing it, and I'm just like, there's some really cool stuff happening in comics, which makes me more mystified why people are like so pissed about comics. Is I'm like, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on, you know.
And then there's also some stuff you read it, you're like, wow, that was so bad.
Oh yeah, but that stuff's been.
Oh yeah, but it's like flagship characters. I don't want to be one of those guys that calls out bad things, but there's some stuff I'll say off the air. There are like some major flagship characters that have been written so poorly.
Yeah.
It's like they're only popular because like they're doing the marketing machine on the side, because it's not the books themselves that are making it happen. Okay, two things. One, remind me tonight, I got to get you my copies of East of West. So because I was going to do that. The other thing, I want to talk about Substack. Have you heard what's going on with Substack?
No, I don't know.
Oh, it's so good.
Tell me.
Okay, because this is, I think there's something that's going to happen, and whether it's Substack or something else, there's going to be kind of like another indie revolution, and I think it's happening, right? And so Substack is like, it's just an email platform. That's all it is like a blogging platform that has RSS email feeds, okay? And a bunch of journalists, it's like Patreon, but for like blogs. And so a bunch of journalists over the last 2 years have like quit their jobs at like major news networks to do pure journalism that's paid for by subscription, so that you would sign up for like so-and-so's thing, right? And you would just get the journalism stories that he's getting out or whatever. And there's like a free part of it and a paywall part. That's Substack. Substack got some venture capital, and they started giving out these giant 6-figure grants to comic book creators. So they hired a comic book writer, and they were like, your job is to give away millions of dollars to comic book creators to have them come to our platform. And so you have like Snyder, you've got Mignola, you've got Scotty Young, you've got huge giant names at DC and Marvel and Image that are switching to Substack. Like Scott Snyder just launched Best Jacket, which is his label that he's doing now. And I should say this. He is doing a comic book class where they're gonna meet weekly through Substack. and he's going to basically teach how to write comic books, and it is not expensive. And the first class is on Wednesday. I'm not getting paid to say this. I signed up for the class, and we already had like our first like meeting, and it was great. So anyway, so like all of these comic book creators are leaving DC, Marvel, and Image to start their own label and use Substack as the way to like get the word out for it. And it is a massive controversy right now. Like everybody's freaking out about it and whatever, but like some people are like staying. They're like, I'm still gonna write for Marvel, but I'm also gonna launch these books. But like Scott Snyder, he just announced like 10 books with like 10 different artists that he is doing from scratch at Substack. Magnola's doing it. Scotty Young has his newsletter, Stupid Hot Fresh Mess or something, Stupid Fresh Mess.
So it's a newsletter? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what exactly, like, I'm not really familiar with Substack.
Yeah, I wasn't either. It's like MailChimp and Patreon had a baby, right? And so it's got a like kind of like a paywall thing, and it's got the ability to like build an email newsletter list that you control, that you can take with you if you want, and then you get it out there. There's been some criticism of it, that there's some people on the platform that are like not great people. But what Scott Snyder is saying is he's saying that the people that they're giving grants to, are good people. And so like you see all these comic book creators that are getting grants, and the grants are kind of interesting. It's almost like a publishing advance, because basically they're like, normally I think they take 10%, right? And so if you get subscriptions or whatever, I'm considering starting a Substack. But anyway, if you get subscriptions or whatever to your Substack, they take 10, you keep 9, right? But if you get a grant, there's some numbers being passed around, and I don't know how accurate they are, but like, I don't think this would be unreasonable to assume somebody gets $250,000. They're going to get 10% of their subscription fees for the first year, and Substack keeps 90, but they keep the 250. And then after that, after the year that they, kind of build their audience and everything like that, it'll flip, and they'll keep 90 and Substack will keep 10. And so it's kind of like an advance that, you start getting your royalties after you pay off the advance or after it's paid out.
I just don't understand how you're getting royalties from it. Like, where's the payment from?
Okay, so I signed up for Scott Snyder's like how to write comic books class. Yeah. And I paid I can't remember what it was, but less than $100 for like a year of subscription to Substack for his Substack. And then, but Substack got some angel investors to come in, and they turned around and took that money and started basically saying like, hey, big giant comic book writer, come to our platform and
I'm following that part. I was just wondering where the initial money is coming from. So people are paying for subscriptions for Substack, which is like a mail program, or is it like a server space? Like, I don't understand.
No, you just get emails. It's just like signing up for an email newsletter. And
but you pay a yearly fee for it.
Yearly or monthly for some of the stuff behind paywall. So that's why it's like Patreon and like OnlyFans or whatever.
Okay.
Is like there's some content that's available for free, and then there's other content that you only get access to if you subscribe. Like Jim Lujan, for example.
Yeah.
Right? If you wanted to get on Jim Lujan's Patreon, you can get early access to stuff. Scott Circland has got the same thing.
Yeah. Jim's showing like actually everybody should support Jim on Patreon. He's got sneak peeks of his upcoming,
right.
film like on there. So I kind of get it. I just was trying to figure out the catch. So that's interesting.
I mean, there's not really a catch other than, you're trying to move people to their platform.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
Frank is asking if Jim Lujan has an OnlyFans, and he does, but with the recent announcement of not allowing adult content, he's going to lose all his followers because that was what he was doing. if anybody's, sometimes people can't tell when I'm kidding. For what I'm aware of, I don't think Jim has ever posed nude online. Okay, so but you don't pay to
Shots
make
fired.
Yeah,
Jim. Libel suits are a possibility. That's all I'm saying. This guy here is getting like expensive like smokers and like sandwich makers. You could be taking that sandwich maker from this libelous.
You could literally take me for tens of dollars.
Substack money, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You could have a Substack of dollar bills. Chris was saying, like Patreon, you pay for access to exclusive material. It's interesting. I'm kind of curious. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's interesting, and everybody's doing it different, right? Because you can use the platform however you want. But like Scott Snyder is doing something that I really like. He's doing a weekly newsletter that is free, where he just talks about what's going on and just behind the scenes stuff and everything else. But then his like teaching of how to write is behind a paywall. And so if you want to like, and it's fascinating. I mean, he's talked about like his inspiration.
Hang on, I just got to make a real quick dig. So is he taking that class? Anyhow, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm one of the few, like, I like some of Snyder's stuff, but I'm not I don't like his writing too much. Sorry.
Some of it misses. But I mean, his Court of Owls run was pretty decent. The first half of The Wake was
my
really
gosh.
good.
I'm making the same mistake.
No, not
Snyder. Zack Snyder was who I was thinking.
Not Zack Snyder.
You're talking about Scott Snyder, who actually is awesome. And I always make that mistake. And now I take back that dig.
I was like,
because I was like, this whole time, I'm like, I guess 300 was cool, but okay, never mind.
No, I'm talking Witches, The Wake, Court of Owls. He's done pretty good stuff.
This makes much more sense for writing classes, because I was like,
why are you taking writing classes from Zack Snyder?
Exactly.
What's your problem? Of all the people that you could choose, Corey. Yeah, American Vampire.
Gosh,
that's been going for a while.
I mean, clearly, I was thinking a different Snyder. Yeah. That must happen so often too.
Oh, I know. Because they're it's like a Venn diagram. They're not in the same circles, but their circles overlap.
Yes. And there's a few things I confuse. Some of them make sense, I've had moments where I've mistaken Joy Division for New Order. And honestly, it kind of makes sense because they're literally the same band except for Ian Curtis. But still, they're kind of different sounds, different bands. Like, this is definitely a name was similar. Cool. That's a good class.
Anyway,
you'll get stuff from it.
But I'm kind of excited because at the same time, it was all last week. This huge list, like the guy who's let me see. I was so fascinated watching this happen because there wasn't like a big announcement. So I started collecting names of who was leaving. Let me find my list. Today is really an insight into how nerdy I am, because I've already like talked about that I watched the Spider-Man trailer frame by frame and took screenshots of things to build this theory. And then I was making my own list of stuff because there wasn't an announcement. There should have been. Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can find this.
I love this stuff though.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, so here's who I was able to figure out so far. Scott Snyder, James Tinian, Mike Mignola, Scotty Young, Michael Avon Oming, Jonathan Hickman, Molly Ostertag, have all announced that they're switching to Substack, like leaving their main things and switching over. And so that's like the people writing Batman, the people writing X-Men, the people writing like all of the major titles.
Yeah.
Have left to go to some other thing. It's to me, it just feels like all of the best artists at Marvel get up and walk over across the street and tell DC they're quitting, and then start Image. It kind of feels like the same thing, except they're not doing it together, but they're kind of doing it together.
So they're not even going to do like major. What's weird is, so they're going to publish their comics through Substack?
No, actually, each one is doing it a little bit differently. Scott Snyder is using Substack to build an audience, and he cut a deal with Comixology, and he is doing Comixology exclusive comics, and he's released 10 different titles that are going to be exclusive to Comixology, all new characters and new stories. And he's using Substack to give everybody the behind the scenes of it, but he's taking the Substack money to fund all of the artwork and coloring and lettering for these 10 titles that he's releasing exclusively on Comixology.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a little more sense. Okay.
Yeah. So Substack isn't the publisher.
Yeah,
some of them
I definitely
are going digital.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to stay traditional. Some of them are going to do both. But it's been pretty fascinating.
That is fascinating. That makes me want to look into it more. Especially so I sound a little bit less like a boomer about it too, because I'm like, Substack, is that like a stack of sub sandwiches? Because do I like sandwiches. Anyhow.
Like I need to like somehow, like CNET has picked it up, New York Times has picked it up, Engadget has picked it up.
That's awesome.
The Verge, Screen Rant, Bleeding Cool, obviously. And what I love about this is that Bleeding Cool's article is like halfway down the page because they're just a bunch of pot stirrers. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Molly Knox Ostertag, known for writing strong female protagonist and The Girl from the Sea. Let's see who else. Come on, where's the big list of names? So this is why I kept my own list. Why would you give a big list of names in this article? Who are you? All right, CNET, you fell on your face. I'm going somewhere else. Who is this? New York Times. Okay, top journalists, historians, and essayists have tried their luck as solo practitioners on Substack. And then it started in 2017 and now has 500,000 subscribers. Let's see. Nick Spencer, comic book writer best known for his work on Marvel Entertainment, was the liaison. So he was the one that started, I think he approached somebody, looks like Chris Best, the Substack founder. Yeah. So he approached Substack and said, hey, I've got a great idea for you. Like, you should reach out to comic books things. So Saladin Ahmed, Jonathan Hickman, Molly Ostertag, Scott Snyder, James Tinian IV are the ones that they're claiming here. Mr. Tinian, who last month won an Eisner Award, is leaving Batman to devote his time to his own creator of her own series and his Substack newsletter.
Interesting.
Michael Avon Oming, Blue Book Stories is something that he's announcing, which is, you guys will love this.
So Substack is like cutting a deal where they're going to do this exclusively through their newsletter.
Yep.
And then they can
publish it. They can publish it wherever they want.
They can publish wherever they want. That's interesting.
And they retain all the rights. But Oming is doing a story called Blue Book, which is stories based on testimonies about alien encounters.
Huh.
And so that's that one. Hickman helped revitalize Marvel's X-Men and has been like writing all of the good stuff at Image lately. And he's going to hire artists Mike Del Mundo and Mike Huddleston. And he's doing a series called 3 Worlds, 3 Moons, in which they will let fans in on the process of building a fictional universe. We're treating it like a bunch of guys jamming together on a concept album, but we're calling it a concept universe. Tinny Howard, Ram 5, Snyder, Sarah Lawrence. Oh, that's college. Sorry, Sarah Lawrence College. Yeah. So anyway,
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
Hollywood
known.
writer Richard Rusfield and historian Heather Cox Richardson, The Economist Emily Oster, and former Slate advice columnist Danny Lavery have all come on. So anyway, it might be one of those things where it completely dries up in a year and falls apart, because I could totally see that happening.
Yeah.
But there's enough like big name people behind it all doing it at the same time that I think you could see a really interesting shift. At the very least, we're going to get some really cool non-Marvel or DC books soon.
Yeah, that's very cool. And it doesn't sound like they're going to be marketing them based on variant covers. So I think we might be okay.
Right.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty cool too. Dude, we're at the 2-hour mark.
Oh, yeah.
Which stinks because it's like I'm really enjoying the conversation. But we're at the 2-hour mark.
My theory really fast, just to throw this out there if anybody wants to look at it. Okay.
I do like it. And this is are you talking Spider-Man again?
Spider-Man, yeah. I'll pull up my tweets so that I've got.
Lay out your theory real quick, because it is a good theory, and I kind of think I need to rewatch the trailer myself.
Yes. So. Okay. Let me pull this up, and then I'll share my screen. Okay. So.
And by the way, the screen is like a tack board with threads, and
it totally is
like. It's like, there's a pin here, and the pin is like, okay, so this is the JFK assassination. This is
okay. So here's my theory. So you see that in the MCU, so here's the trailer, right? So you go through this whole trailer, and then you start to. I have to mute this. So you start to see different colors in the type, and so when the different colors come up in the type, here's what I find interesting in the MCU. They've gone out of their way to make sure that they color the magic users using magic differently. And there's quotes from people saying, well, you have to know when Agatha's purple magic is overtaking the Witch Coven's blue magic, or you wouldn't be watching anything, right? And so they do that. And so anybody who's in kind of the strange world of things, the Academy, the Ancient One, Doctor Strange, all of his, they use, unless they've been tainted by the dark realm, they use orange magic, right? And so all of the stuff that you see them do, it's got kind of the Lord of the Rings elven script that usually comes out in lines and circles, and it's orange. The Scarlet Witch, Wanda, her magic is red. Agatha Harkness, who is the spoiler alert if you haven't seen WandaVision, stop listening to this right now, who is like the main villain of WandaVision, has purple magic, right? And so we've got orange, we've got purple, and we've got red. And when you go here and you get to the different things, you have purple and green. And every time the word spell comes up, it separates out into multiple versions of itself into purple and green, and sometimes yellow. And that you could argue that that's just a whatever, right? But then you start seeing really interesting things as they cast the spell in the trailer. The spell being cast is orange, but everything in the spell continues to be surrounded and enveloped by purple. And Agatha, her magic using ability is to absorb and basically be like a magic vampire, right? She sucks the energy or the life force or the whatever. That's why everybody went all, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, or the thing at the end of the thing where she killed everybody in her coven, is she absorbs other things. And so it's very interesting to me to see purple surrounding the orange. And so as you look at, as they're casting these spells, it starts out, oh, I know. It starts out green and orange, right? And then it turns purple and red. And at the end of WandaVision, Agatha is imprisoned by the Scarlet Witch. And then you notice that there's still purple surrounding it, and then thing. And so every time you see this, you see purple surrounding things. So here we have purple, we've got blue, we've got green, we've got yellow, but it's all surrounded by and enveloped by purple. And then when it coalesces into a single orb, it's a purple orb. And so my theory is that Agatha is controlling Doctor Strange right now, because we see her do that. We see her do that with the person that she kind of hijacked to pretend to be Quicksilver in that. And so she has the ability to kind of like puppet string people and do that type of thing. And so, but then there's also some other interesting things that happen with colors. And so it kind of breaks my theory a little bit, but you have like the Green Goblin, his stuff glows green. You've got Doc Ock, his stuff glows red. You've got Electro, his stuff glows yellow. You've got Sandman, who kind of glows brown here. I believe this is Sandman protecting Spider-Man here. I'm not sure. And then you have an orange. This is somebody shows up, and I didn't get a good screenshot of this one, but somebody shows up in like a sling ring portal, doing kind of like the Doctor Strange thing, but isn't Doctor Strange. So I think this might be, my guess is that the secondary villain might be the warlock, wizard, sorcerer guy that went rogue in the last Doctor Strange that was shown in the after credits scene. So this is where you start to get, because he was like, the real problem is that there's just too many sorcerers. And so he kills the guy that was using the dark realm to power his legs, because he was in a wheelchair and then was like playing basketball and stuff. So my theory is that WandaVision with Wanda and Agatha is going to be directly related to making Doctor Strange basically destroy the multiverse and have everything converge together, because Doctor Strange doesn't act like Doctor Strange here. He's like cavalier.
Yeah, and
then
the question is like, another thing is like, why is his whole area like frozen? Like,
yes. So that's really, I haven't been able to figure that out, but like everything is under snow. He's wearing like an Ivy League hoodie underneath his like magic cloak.
Yeah.
And he's like winking, and he's not being careful about things. Like the guy's like, don't cast that spell, it's going to be bad. And he's like, okay, I won't cast that spell. And then he like winks and casts the spell, like doesn't care. And the whole winking thing is a very Agatha thing to do, because throughout the whole WandaVision thing, she's always winking at the camera and doing all these kind of asides and kind of the sitcom deal. So that's kind of like her personality. So that kind of lends me to believe that she's probably involved in like controlling Doctor Strange.
Well, and we know that like WandaVision is going to tie directly into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness too. So
right,
that is really interesting.
Oh, okay. I think I know where green just came from. Green is Mysterio. Look at all the purple there.
Yeah,
there's purple and blue like everywhere.
I mean,
and I
hate to. Okay, so I think your color thing is cool and might be true. The only thing I would say that might also be a reason for the complementary colors to make that yellow pop. But then, sure, you've got a good point of like, why is
Marvel?
Yeah, it's interesting.
So multiverse here is purple and green, just like the word spell was purple and green, which I find interesting. And if green is Mysterio, it kind of makes you wonder whether this actually is the multiverse or whether this is a faked multiverse, because they pretended that there is a multiverse in Homecoming, but it just happened to be the thing that disaffected guy that was playing Mysterio made up when they brought the elementals in and stuff, the lava guy, and they were supposed to be elementals from other dimensions. And that's when Peter Parker's like, so that you're telling me there's a multiverse? And everybody got really excited. And then it wasn't a multiverse. And so if green is Mysterio, then some of this might be faked or illusion or whatever.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So this is the shot where we have the hint at Electro. And if they bring Electro back from Jamie Foxx, that's going to be awful. There's something about this that I think there's something going on there, but I don't know what it is yet. So that was the shot. Right here is the shot. If you watch this frame by frame, you see somebody kind of doing the little orange magic stuff. He just kind of shows up there. And then here we have Sandman We've got Black Suit Spider-Man and Electro in this shot.
Interesting.
And then here's the Goblin, Green Goblin, Pumpkin Bomb. And then here's the big reveal that everybody sees because it's,
I love how in depth you get with it. And actually, I think that is one of the coolest things, Corey. You are a wealth of information. But it's awesome. It's respectable, man.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, so should we call it? We're at 2:15.
I do want to say one more thing that could be really interesting.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's cool.
We still have scrolls pretending to be S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's true.
Like that's still happening. That we still have Nick Fury in space on vacation, I guess, and then scrolls pretending to be Nick Fury here, but they're good. But if we're gonna have a secret invasion, they've got to be bad. And so the bad scrolls could be alternate dimension scrolls where the history went differently, and they're not like they were in Captain Marvel. They're like they were in the comics. And then you could get your super scrolls, which are able to not only imitate people's looks, but imitate people's mutant abilities.
Well, and I also feel like you have that whole collapse of the separated time, like of the protected timeline in Loki that's going to have to connect all of this as well. So it's like it's going to be fun to see it play out.
Because Krull the Conqueror is dead and being reborn now because of that, and the sacred timeline has fractured into a million different things, and that didn't happen from a point in time. Because when Loki goes back, he meets the same people, but he traveled back in time and they have no idea who he is. And so, and they assume he's an agent because of the way that he's dressed, but they don't know who he is. And so that didn't affect, like, from this point on, like the way the Ancient One describes it, that affected the entire timeline. So you could get 2099 Spider-Man, and you could get like, there's a version of Spider-Man who's the Anansi, the African spider god, who's the storyteller.
Which is funny because there's like, well, that's a different comic company, but I'm like, DC, I mean, Anansi is pretty much the Sandman. Like they're kind of connected, but anyhow, whatever.
Right. So yeah.
All right.
But Anansi is a spider totem.
That's true.
In Spider-Verse.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. There's like this whole like Sam Keith style short story of Anansi running around just cracking wise like Bugs Bunny.
That's brilliant.
It's really out of place, but it was funny because I know who Anansi was. So
all right.
Okay.
We gotta call it. All right.
That was my theory.
Corey, I love your theory. Where can people check out your stuff?
So go watch go to CoreyKerr.com/online, or just go to CoreyKerr.com and click on what's new and go watch the music video. Share it and leave a comment on it because it's starting to pick up steam. I think the algorithm isn't hiding it from people like they normally do. And so anything that you guys can do to kind of like tell the algorithm that it needs to be shown to people would be awesome. So
signal boost it.
Yes, all that. But yeah, you can just do that at CoreyKerr.com. It's on my Instagram and it's on my YouTube. And I've linked to it on Twitter. So
I adore that.
Whichever of the 4 ways you want to get to it, do that. Where can we find your stuff, Josh?
You can find my stuff at joshuakemble.com, and you can go on Amazon and pick up a copy of 2 Stories Book 1 if you haven't already. It's still on sale on Amazon for like something like $5, a little over $5. So if you have Prime, you get free shipping. If you don't want to get it through Amazon, get it through your local comic book store. Have them order it through Ingram. 2 Stories Book 1, Joshua Kemble. Cool.
Yep.
We did it.
All right. Okay. We will see you guys in a week. Catch you later.
Love it.